Basketball 10, just hours away. I am CDJ, and alongside me tonight, special guest host, JB Huskers. JB, how are you?
Good, how's it going?
I'm good. Some bad news to start off the podcast. EA this week laid off a lot of people. Initially, we heard layoffs coming, didn't know how many. Came out to be by April 10th of next year, 1,500 people will have lost their jobs. That's 17% of the company's workforce and includes 900 game development units. Hopefully, the guys who work on the games you love, hopefully they didn't lose their jobs. Anybody who did, hopefully they can bounce back. But in this economy, it's horrible to hear of anybody losing their job, especially this close to the holiday season. We'll try to move on to something more upbeat rather quickly. The demo for NCAA Basketball 10 is now out. The 360 version came out last week. The PFC version moved up a week, came out this past Thursday. Jeremy, what were your thoughts on the demo for NCAA Basketball 10?
Well, for the most part, a lot of the core gameplay to me still seems the same, which is not a bad thing. I thought last year's game played fairly well. Some of the things that I've noticed the most are the players' awareness on the sidelines while they've got the ball is a little better, and then there's a lot more loose ball animations and things that can happen when the ball is loose, which are a couple of nice little additions to the game.
For me, the thing that stood out is something that we knew was coming, but to see it in action I thought was really neat was the CBS broadcast integration. And I was just impressed overall with how sharp graphically it's looked. A lot of demos, they kind of dull down the graphics a little bit to make it a smaller file size. I thought it looked really sharp. And I know you've only played Live 10 once or twice. How do you think the two compare? I struggled to figure out the right word to say here. I've been trying to think about it since I played the demo on Thursday. I still don't know the right word to use. I don't know if fluid's the right word. I know graphically I think it's a lot sharper. I think the animations, for the most part, are smoother. There's still some weird ones that are in there. What do you think between the two games of what you played?
It does feel like you have a lot more control on the college game. I think especially with the motion offenses being implemented, it feels like there's a lot more, like you said, fluidity in the gameplay as opposed to the few times that I've played live.
Let's get on to the features of the game. This year, the marketing and PR hasn't been the greatest, and we'll talk about that later on. The biggest thing that's in there is that the game plays a lot like Live 10. For those that haven't played Live 10, them saying that doesn't mean a lot. It doesn't mean anything. But I recommend if you are on the fence about this game, go download the demo for Live and also for NCAA Basketball 10 to really understand all of the gameplay additions that are in the game. What feature stands out to you as one you're looking forward to most in the game?
Well, obviously, the biggest feature that's out there this year is the dynamic updates, as it's going to update once a week, I believe, shortly after the Monday polls come out. I believe they'll throw out a new update for this, and it's going to update the RPI. It's going to update the team stats, and also it's going to update the team ratings too, which I believe Pasta Padre had alluded to before. The only way to do that is to change the player rating. So it's going to be interesting to see how all this plays out, and if you're able to tie this into the Dynasty mode, which is my favorite part of the game.
I thought about that as well. Like, how are they doing this? And we don't know. They haven't shared the details on that. Go figure. Personally, if I had to guess, I think what it's doing is it's going to have some hidden global sliders adjustments to teams. I think it'll look at the stats when it takes them from the dynamic updates, and let's say, for example, that Missouri leads the nation in steals. I think behind the scenes it will apply a global, maybe a 5-point boost to the steals of Missouri, and that way they'll force more steals, playing like their real life counterparts. But yet at the same time, it won't technically be updating or changing your roster file, because if it goes in there, if it's making changes to the roster file, there's a big concern: will we lose named rosters? And I can't imagine they would do that, but I have to say this is all speculation and all guessing on both of our parts. One of the best pieces of information that has come out in the whole pre-release was Bill Abner's Q&A with lead producer Connor Dugan that talked about some of the sim results being fixed. I would imagine this includes the RPI, hopefully, but a lot of the upsets have been toned down in the tournament, and teams are really playing more where the big boys are emerging through the tournament. And hopefully that is a result of better seeding due to the RPI and also just better sim results. To go back to the features, dynamic updates I think is a huge feature. I think it's been dramatically underplayed and undervalued. Part of that is we had a very, very short blog on it. Wasn't enough to get people hyped. I think once they see it in action, I can't imagine it not being highly requested for NCAA Football 11. Anything to update those team ratings each week and to make the teams try to play like their real-life counterparts. I mean, that's the first time a college game has ever done anything like this. In a nutshell, you could say that every other college game has been out of date by week one, because the team rankings, the top 25, you could never edit. So that was out of date right off the bat. And if the team changed their style, the game, you really couldn't adjust it for the most part. So I think this is as you said, that's the number one feature, but I really think it's been underplayed so far. For me, me, the CBS and ESPN integration is going to be huge. That's going to be what this game is known for. But I think dynamic updates is really the thing people are going to be really excited about. I'm going to touch on the other features real quick here for people who maybe haven't been following the pre-release hype and marketing of the game. We found out that EA Locker is back, and to make it better this year, you don't have to be on someone's friend list to get the roster file. You can just search for whoever, which is a great addition. There's more game plan options. When you go into the demo, I think you go into game plan or more options.
There's a few newer features in that game plan that I did notice. The one mainly is you can key on their star player. That's one of the main ones that stuck out to me on the new game plan.
Yeah, that's something I wish they would have talked about in a blog. And the big one, obviously, is the motion offenses. We've heard about this. They've had a couple of videos. For me, I've been using this in the demo. It's really paramount, I think, that you run the motion offense and be patient. Look for the guy who's coming off the screens, coming off movement. That so far in the demo, I played an all-conference, and I have been beaten every game except for one time.
Yeah, and me too.
The game I won is the one I used motion offense the entire 5-minute demo, found the open man, and it just seems like the game, and this is a common sense thing, the game rewards you for running offense and finding the open man.
And that's the key thing with this dynamic update, too. A lot of teams may implement different motion offenses, and those new plays are going to be included in those dynamic updates as well.
Yeah, I think it ties together really well. And we'll get into the marketing and PR right now, that I didn't think they did a very good job of tying this all together, getting people hyped. And I know this has been a big topic of debate, that people, I think, were kind of holding marketing shortcomings against the development team. And I think most people realize there's two completely different units. They don't work together. It isn't like they're all sitting in a room throughout the year. It's really not that way. And to kind of show the size of the dev team, go to the credits on the demo and look at the first category or two of the executive producer and a couple of the main developers. You'll see less than 5 on that list. A lot of the engineers and testers, all of the EAC titles share those. So those you can kind of throw out. But when you look at the producers, you'll see the executive producer, Brent Nielsen, and you'll see producers like Novell Thomas, Sean Campbell, Connor Dugan, and that's all you see. That is the NCAA basketball team, and some of those guys work on live as well, that there may not be even a pure NCAA basketball team member. When people talk about the marketing and PR, I say don't hold it against the dev team, because obviously it's a small team. They've got better things to do, like working on the game. To wrap up the show, Jeremy, what did you think of the marketing, the PR, community relations for this game? And I imagine I know it, but I just would like to hear from someone in the community what they've thought.
Well, it's basically been flat out horrible. We've been promised a blog on the dynamic updates. I mean, they didn't even specifically say it was dynamic updates, but most of the community could guess what it was going to be. We were promised that. It got pushed back many times, and even in the EA forums, the community manager had stated that the blog's finally out. You can look for Dynasty info later this week. Well, we're already into next week, 2 days before release, and we never did get anything in regards to Dynasty info. It just doesn't really seem like that they're really caring at this point.
The thing that really got me, and your last night I think was perfect, by the way. The thing that got me is that when you're in a down economy and you're in a job in a company that's cutting positions, the cheapest thing you can do to create hype is to really engage the community, the fan sites out there. I haven't seen a lot of interaction with us specifically. Sean has posted some, but like I said, developers are busy. That we shouldn't blame or expect them to be the one relaying all the information. That's what marketing, PR, community relations and community managers get paid for. That's not what developers get paid for. I thought this year they would have really engaged the community, found initiatives with us, whether it be contacting us for Q&A, for just to talk about the features more media, like screenshots and videos, and that wasn't out there. And that's probably the cheapest and easiest thing you can do in a company that just laid off nearly 1/5 of their workforce. The best thing that happened for this game was the demo coming out. I think people realize it's a pretty solid game, and I think a lot of people are anxious for Tuesday so they can get their hands on the game, see all the features in action themselves. But it is really a shame that marketing didn't do more for this title. So for Jeremy, I'm Chris. Jeremy, thanks for coming on.
No problem.
Everyone, thanks for listening to this edition of the Utopia podcast, and make sure to check out NCAA Basketball 10